Welcome back to another amazing episode of Krusty Car News. I've got a hot cup of coffee and I want to talk about 5 amazing new news stories. You're going to want to get a load of these. The first story is breaking news. California's absolutely going to abolish used classic cars. That's right, they plan to ban these vehicles because of a couple major reasons, one of which you've probably never even heard of yet. The second story, some of the worst car deals you could possibly imagine. You would think after all these prices have been dropping with heavy incentives that you could finally get some amazing car deals. Believe it or not, I've got a list of some of the absolute worst disasters you're going to want to know about to avoid those like the plague. And the third story, yes, believe it or not, the truck market is still broken. But this time Ford has something specific they need to tell you about it. We're going to dive right into that. The fourth story, dealers can't give away these cars. Conversely, we heard of some of the worst car deals, ones that you're likely going to overpay for. This one, you're definitely going to get some of the best deals. These dealers can't give these vehicles away. And the fifth story, sad news. Would you believe it? Car prices this year in 2025 are set to explode. Grab your beautiful bucket of popcorn, sit back, and let's go for a ride. Let's get into it now. Life's too short to drive boring cars. The first story we're going to talk about is what's going on in California and classic cars that they're about to be banned. That's right, CARB is at it again, but this time they've got the support of politicians, not just at the state level, but as well the federal level are signing off and approving some of these aggressive measures to get your favorite classic cars off the road. This is a devastating time in the automotive industry, one which affects the classic car culture and one that will impact cars going forward in the future. This is a sad state of affairs, folks.
But this Corvette is now impounded and could be destroyed under state law.
Giving the green light to ban the sale of gas-powered cars.
This could, in fact, be the beginning of the end for classic car lovers in California as they plan to ban all of those old classics, old Porsches, old hot rods, old muscle cars. And a lot of them because of the emissions. And as well, now the latest is some of the chrome that's created to create these chrome bumpers, and the chromium products that go into that are allegedly 500 times more toxic than the emissions that a lot of these gas guzzlers actually emit. According to California Air Resources Board, or CARB, they identify that the chrome product that you often see on a lot of old classic and muscle cars with that shine and that distinctive look is causing serious health effects that could include phasing out the hexavalent chromium products that are used in these chrome bumpers and chrome trim pieces. And as we've just rolled into 2025, knocking on the door is 2027, where in fact, CARB's ban would be the first in the world that proposes a ban on chromium-6 in decorative plating products like the bumpers as well as kitchen fixtures by 2027. Now, Jane Williams, the executive director of California Communities Against Toxics, told the LA Times, even the EU hasn't found a substitute for crucial uses and is not adopting the same change. What do you replace it with? Plastics? We know plastics emit all kinds of toxic materials known to mankind already, and so which is actually the lesser of two evils? And while a lot of the old classic land yachts, like Caddies and Mercuries, are using a lot of chrome from the 1950s and 60s, now the transition is to cars with more carbon fiber, more plastics, the dark finishing, and that is absolutely obsoleting a lot of these product requirements, except for the classic car lover. There's still a large percentage of the population within California, as well as the rest of the US, that really focus on restoration, modification, and the ongoing show and tell of their great classic car that they constantly restore, bring back to life, and show and shine on those Sunday afternoons. Well, there are alternatives, and products like trivalent chromium has been available since the 1990s, but it's a much darker tinge, and you lose that ultra glossy, high chrome look that you get to know and love in a lot of these old classic cars. This new type of chromium, although it has been used for a while, just doesn't have the same appeal that a lot of classic car lovers would have. And it would never come close to matching what these cars came out with back in the 1960s, and clearly trying to restore some of these vehicles back to their original glory is definitely going to have an impact on the way these vehicles look. The other flip side, once this ban is passed, you're going to be a plethora of companies, businesses, and workers out of business. You're clearly going to make a major impact on employment as well as business success it's going to have a huge impact. The chromium ban is going to take a major toll on the classic car sector, but unfortunately it's bigger than that, because in California they're coming down hard on stricter emissions, even on the conversion from internal combustion engines over to the EV market, where clearly the popularity for Teslas and electric vehicles massively exceeds what we're finding across the rest of the country. Now, in August of 2023, CARB commissioned a survey of vehicles that were 1978 or older,
trying to figure out how people are using their classic cars. Now, odds are a lot of the classic car owners that did get the survey, I'm betting probably just filed that survey in the round bin.
And this ignited major concerns for classic car lovers in California. They argued that the state government should provide explicit authority to local jurisdictions to create zero-emission zones. And while some media outlets sensationalized the conversation and painted it much worse than it was clear that the trend was in California that the idea of high emissions internal combustion vehicles were not wanted, and that you would pay a price as an owner of a vehicle to use specific zones or have your vehicle banned entirely.
I can speak for a lot of them knowing that you will pry my 68 Mustang gear shift out of my cold dead fingers.
And while the current California governor is in total support of this process and this program,
Governor Gavin Newsom said, quote, "Clean cars are here to stay. The Biden-Harris administration reaffirmed what we've known for decades. California can rise to the challenge of protecting our people by cleaning our air and cutting pollution."
the critics are saying, no, it's not going to happen. There's no way. So if you've got a classic car and you're really worried about where this is trending, in a few short years, you might find yourself looking for a new place to park it if California is not welcoming that beautiful little car. With all of that said, you want to make sure, if you're not already a member of Exotic Car Play Place, be sure to tag on the membership program there. You're going to get exclusive rights, early views on some of the videos, and as well some great shout outs. And as well, of course, it does support the channel, and we all very much appreciate it. The second story is the worst car deals right now. If you can actually believe it, with all of these huge discounts we've seen at the end of 24, now in 2025, of course, it didn't take long, and a lot of these manufacturers are jacking up the prices. But some popular, reliable vehicles that you've probably thought, yes, I'd love to have one of those. Unfortunately, some of those have been jacked up even further. That's right. 8%, 10, 15% over sticker, not uncommon. You're going to want to find out which cars those are. As we roll into 2025, we've seen some big incentives at the end of 24 meant that a lot of people were buying. A lot of manufacturers were taking thousands of dollars off of sticker price. But unfortunately, as always, there's going to be a few outliers with popular models, vehicles that are hard to come by, quality, reliability that sometimes people are looking for, or popular new models. So guess what? We're going to just cut right to the chase. Enough of the nonsense. I'm going to share some of the absolute worst culprits, the highest prices over sticker in the industry right now. Thanks to consumers' reports and some of their statistics, we're finding that there's some really bad buys out there. So if you really need to have them, sure, do what you've got to do. You've still got to carve out a deal as best as you possibly can. But because of the popularity, because of the shortage, there's a high possibility you're going to struggle getting a deal on these following vehicles. The Toyota GR86. Right now, we know the Toyota GR86. We know Subaru also has a vehicle like that, and it's a rear-wheel drive. It's a fun little sporty car. It's not going all Supra. It's essentially a flat four-cylinder, rear-wheel drive, manual gearbox. It's a good, honest sports car in a world of all of these overly complex vehicles. And see, that's part of the appeal. You still get some of the Toyota/Subaru reliability, but the fact is they're hard to come by. Toyota's had some supply challenges getting vehicles to market. It's not uncommon that you still got to wait weeks or months to get some of their products, so it's not a shocker that some of the Toyotas are on this list. But the GR86, on average, people are still paying 8% over sticker. Another one should not be of no surprise, the Toyota Grand Highlander, which is a bit of a shocker to me because they were on a little bit of a hiatus. I mean, we know there was those airbag recalls with the driver window down, and there were some issues with the Grand Highlander, but they are popular. A third row gives you a little more space than you're getting with the regular Highlander. And people are paying over 8% over sticker on average. Here we go, Toyota BZ4X. People are paying 8% over. You want something that's a little more unique, and Toyota's arsenal, you're going to pay the piper. Now, with that said, On the Toyota side, you're probably going to find better deals on Tundras. I was going through some local Car Gurus advertisements, and I saw a good percentage of the GMC trucks that were actually marked up. I'm talking brand new 23s and brand new 24s that are on the lot, right? I mean, lot rot's a real problem. Tire flat spotting, cracked tires, older batteries, paint fade, bird crapping on them. Oil's, 2-3 years old now. It's not the best approach to buy a 2-year-old brand new vehicle unless you're getting a major discount, but I'm seeing price increases on brand new 23s and 24s. 25s, same storyline. And I've actually seen price increases of $18,000, $20,000 on brand new 24s. I don't know what's going on. I do know what's going on. What's going on is buyers that aren't well informed. Because realistically, what you're having now is a situation where GM and Ford have had a very good year in sales this year, and some of their EVs and certainly some of their ICE pickup trucks, whereas Ram has not. But in doing so, it's the old supply and demand. So GM's done very well for sales in 24, particularly in the last half. And as a result, supply and demand kicks in. Capitalism, it's straight up. 8% over sticker is what you can expect to pay on a GMC Sierra. A lot of dealers were holding on to those. And I even went into a dealer and they gave me the old song and dance that you couldn't get these vehicles and they're hard to come by and they're rare and it's all smoke and mirrors, it's all noise. But that dealer told me literally to my face, they don't go for a sticker. We're typically charging $10,000, $8,000 over a sticker because you can't find them. And that's nonsense, that's hogwash. And at that point, you just turned me off, you lost a customer, I'm out the door. There's no way I'm paying market adjustment or anything over sticker. Even sticker price is obscene. I think we should be targeting between invoice and sticker price. But people are getting sucked in by the vortex. And Toyota, the 4Runners, the outgoing with the 4-liter, 8% over sticker is what people are paying. Ford Maverick is another one. Why? Why? It was supposed to be that truck that was supposed to be in the 20s. It was supposed to be 20,000 plus US dollars. And now I've been on lots. I've showed you this. I mean, we've done the car walk arounds, right? I showed some of the Ford trucks. The Mavericks, a Lariat. I saw, and I even showed it to you, a brand new Lariat, local dealer here for $55,000 for a brand new Lariat Maverick. I mean, now you're in money. You're paying for a low trim level Ford F-150. Why on God's green earth are people paying that kind of money for a Maverick? That's a pint-sized truck. You can't even haul a proper 4x8 sheet of plywood on there. The Mustang Mach-E says they're stickering 8% over, or they're selling for 8% over sticker. Ford F-150, another one. We notice it's North America's best-selling pickup truck, the F-150. The regular ICE versions, the turbo 2.7s, 3.5s, all of the collection of F-150s, they've always been a popular truck and they continue to be that way. And people are overpaying. Again, I caution anyone to be paying over sticker. If anything, we need to be targeting below sticker or invoice. And if they don't want to play the game, you go down the road. I mean, Toyota's got trucks, even Ram, and I'm not suggesting everybody's got a choice, but you know what? It is supply and demand, and why are we overpaying for these trucks? It's not a monopoly. They'd like to make you believe that that's the only boy in town, the only truck in town, but 8% over sticker on the average F-150 is bizarre to me. Ford Bronco Sport, 8% over sticker. Same story is what we're seeing. Doesn't make sense. Built in Mexico. It's really a trash bin on wheels. People are making a decision to, instead of buying that big SUV, to maybe going down to a smaller SUV. Instead of buying that big car or truck, maybe go to a mid-sized car. Something a little smaller, subcompacts. That's why Nissan, the Versa Note, or Mitsubishi, and some of their small cars are doing very, very well now this year because people are looking for a cheaper alternative. And now as those cheaper alternatives are shopped out, now like the Corolla, they're harder to get. Right? It's a reliable car. It has all of the amenities you need and it's more affordable. $20,000, $30,000 range, you can get into a new Corolla. And so people are now starting to pay. They're competing with each other. So it's driving prices up a little bit. If any of those vehicles apply to you, if you want to buy one of those vehicles, I totally get it. They're wonderful, they're great, and there's a lot of redeeming value. But when you go in there, if you need to buy that car, go in there, sharpen your pencils, don't take no for an answer, don't pay sticker, certainly don't pay over sticker, and be sure to try target somewhere between invoice and sticker, which is somewhere between 7 to 5% below sticker price that you'll find on the window. The third story, yes, the truck market is broken and Ford has a lot of proof. Their F-150 Lightnings are selling, their internal combustion vehicles are selling, their heavy-duty F-250s and F-350 vehicles are selling, their Broncos, their Bronco Sports, everything's selling and they're hitting some big numbers. But yet, the truck market is breaking. Customers are buying these vehicles and a lot of them can't afford it. Banks are enabling this. What's going on and why are people buying it if they can't afford these vehicles?
We're noticing Super Duty, this one here, $95,000. Ford has had an amazing year selling trucks. The last Q4 of 24, truck sales up 21%. As well, the overall average for Ford in Q4 of 24 was about 8.8% up increase in sales. They're up 28% for the Mustang Mach-E, as well as even higher than that for the F-150 Lightning. The overall year for Ford was up 4.2%, even outbeating GM products by 4% increase in sales for 2024, a clear indication that not all is bad. But what's so bad about that in the automotive industry if sales are doing well? Ford's appetite's been like the big three. They like to sell the larger vehicles, the trucks, the large SUVs, because they're getting much bigger profit margin. The smaller cars, we know the Escape is going away, it's being discontinued, and we also know that Ford no longer sells a car because they don't see the profits in it. Ford's pretty much eliminated all their small cars like that. And as well, now they're replacing vehicles, obviously with the Mustang Mach-E, and even the Bronco Sport represents an opportunity to get into a smaller vehicle, but they're priced a little higher than the outgoing Escape, which is about to be discontinued. And therefore, affordable vehicles in the Ford lineup are fewer and far between. And in an effort to increase profits, full-size trucks are getting scaled up. Even large trucks like the Harley Davidsons and trucks like this are costing consumers $180,000, $190,000. And it makes the affordable realm of trucks, cars, and SUVs in the Ford lineup fewer and far between as well. People can't afford it. The cost of living crisis is real, and less people are able to afford a new vehicle. No small cars, only expensive trucks and SUVs. And that brings us to the next point. Where Ford's doing well, they're selling a lot of product and inventory, and they're pretty much trading punches with GM in terms of overall sales of their full-size trucks, 4.2% over 2023, whereas GM was about 4%. They're all selling a ton of trucks. Clearly, trucks are very popular, but unfortunately, what you have now is delinquencies. We're having delinquencies, people getting it over their head, and a lot of these vehicles now are clearly well beyond the affordability. People are taking out car loans now for 5, 6, 7 years, unfortunately, and most of them go directly to negative equity. In other words, they're going to get to a point where they actually owe more money than that vehicle's actually worth. And sadly, now the average loan amount that people are paying for these new vehicles like this is around $42,000, where the average transaction price is almost touching $50,000 these days. And 20% of the car loans out there right now, people are paying over $1,000 per month. Do you want to be part of the $1,000 a month club? That just means more and more people are giving up their cars, repossession, negative equity, owing more and more and more in that cycle of trade-in 2-3 years, and they owe money on top of the trade-in. It means a lot of people are getting it over their head. They can't afford these vehicles, but they continue to buy them. That's going to lead to one place and one place only: financial distress. Statistically speaking, of course, Ford, along with the other manufacturers, have found ways to enable the consumer. The consumer has no problems getting in over their heads as long as the banks are enabling this. So the combination of banks, of course, having all the money in the world and being able to literally sign over a car loan to somebody looking in to get into their brand new pickup truck is all the doctor ordered. And Ford is one of the leading sellers of a lot of these full-size trucks, large SUVs, and they're selling at an alarming rate. Now, that's great news for Ford, and that's what keeps them in business. And that's also great for workers. That's great for people who work for Ford, whether you're in corporate or whether you're frontline, you're building vehicles. That's all wonderful news, except the people that are buying these vehicles at prices that are out of this world. Now, what we're finding is people are okay with spending this kind of money. Why are all these vehicles selling? Well, what's happening is with the end of 24 rolled around, we saw sales creep drastically, not creep up, drastically jumped up. And a big part of that has to do with incentives, and Ford and GM and even Ram and all of the major manufacturers are offering heavy incentives at the year end every single year as they're trying to move a lot of their metal, trying to move it outside and get people to buy the products. I had a look at Car Gurus and I actually came across numerous F-150 Lightnings that were marked up. That's right. Go look and you'll see Car Gurus logs how old that vehicle is, a brand new 23, a brand new 24, and they've been jacked up $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 where they were before. Why is this happening? It's because Ford has had success, and it's like they always say, right? Supply and demand. Demand drives up, supply shrinks, naturally prices get reflected. And that's what Ford is doing. And they're applying increased prices on a lot of their vehicles, whether it's the Lightning, the Mustang Mach-E, and even the F-150, the ICE vehicles.
Well, with all of that said, are you one of those players buying that new truck, buying a 6 or 7 year loan to pay for that vehicle, spending $1,500 to $2,000 a month? If you are, you might want to think again. Nobody wants to have their vehicle repossessed, and certainly nobody wants to be underwater on their car loans. So definitely try to avoid that one. The fourth story, believe it or not, there are a lot of cars that aren't selling. Dealers are sitting on them. Lot rot is real. Tires are getting worn out, cracked, old. Paint is starting to fade. The birds are even taking a chomp at some of these vehicles. Why are these vehicles not selling? Well, we'll find out. But more importantly, you can get yourself an amazing deal. That's the win here. You can get some deals on these vehicles that sit because these dealers are going to be very hungry to sell. I want to share some of the lists and the vehicles, as well as Cox Automotive, the average day supply. For example, some of the worst in the industry, Jaguar, Lincoln, they're over double the industry average. The industry average day supply is around 85 days now. We've seen that come and go throughout the last couple of years as inventory, the availability has risen again. We've seen days supply drop because obviously now people are out shopping, buying, and there's just more vehicles available. Vehicles like Mini, on average, 129 days supply. Infiniti, 101 days supply. Vehicles like Kia, 77 days supply. But we also notice the Lexus and Toyotas are up around that 31, 36 days supply. And we know it's been actually pretty difficult to get a decent Toyota, or even in some cases certain Hondas and Lexus vehicles in the last few years. Let's take this from the top. The first vehicle on our list is the Mini Cooper Hardtop, 224 days supply. Mini BMW. People are sort of done with that. I mean, it was chic at the time for a while when Mini first came out. It was kind of cool. And they make some great two-door cars that are fun to drive. But, you know, you get in sort of these larger ones, hardtops, it's just not a vehicle that's appealing to a large audience. And while it's very chic and exclusive and small niche market, there's just not enough buyers out there for Minis. The Audi A7, not a shocker, 225 days supply. The Audi A7, not the most reliable. We know VAG Group's been struggling in the last few months here, last few years actually, but we're seeing Volkswagen Audi Group not selling the way they've wanted to sell. As a matter of fact, some of the plants in Germany are looking at, closing doors. Workers are, in some cases getting laid off and canned. And the A7 is a premium car. So people no longer are looking for a car because the car market seems to be shrinking and the SUV and truck market seems to be expanding. Land Rover Discovery, I think when you look at those, the bathtub look design at the back of them, not a really good looking vehicle. 232 days supply for those vehicles, and the quality, reliability, it sort of speaks volumes. The Nissan Z or Z car, 233 days supply. Nissan's not selling at all. Why do you think Honda's now having to step up? Word has it, Honda is looking at collaborating with Mitsubishi and Nissan, trying to get together to create something that's affordable in the electric vehicle space to compete with the Chinese market. And in doing so, Nissan clearly has been struggling for weeks and months. We've seen staff members, we've seen a lot of staff getting canned. We've seen the CFO leave. We've seen the CEO taking pay cuts. And they're doing everything but pretty much giving away all of their profits on trying to incentivize these vehicles. Jaguar F-Pace. F-Pace, E-Pace, not great sellers. The F-Pace there's still a lot of inventory laying around out there. They weren't taking orders. The last I heard, you could not go into the dealership and get a brand new order. Jaguar pretty much took a year off. We know that, with this new rebrand that was all controversial. The F-Type, the sports car, bye-bye, great car, but it just didn't sell in the numbers. E-Pace, not a great seller. F-Pace, also poor seller. There's lots of them out there yet, but based on the last 45 days, extrapolate, how many more days supply do we have available? Well, according to these statistics, we're saying we've got about 241 days supply left. So we're kind of, if they stopped today, which they are, and they're selling at the current rate, they'd be out in good part of a year. Jaguar XF, same storyline, and that one's 280 days supply. Sedan, again, Jaguar and the reliability, JLR, some of the controversy there, durability, poor sellers. It's also luxury sedan on a shrinking market. Another one, Alfa Romeo Giulia, 285 days supply. Again, not a big shocker. Alfa Romeo, Maserati, part of the Stellantis group, and Stellantis has had a real bugger in trying to sell cars. You know, it's just been a tough uphill battle. Pricing's part of it, the quality's part of it. You know, hitting the target audience with a lot of the Stellantis products means that the sales have been in the toilet for almost everything under the Stellantis umbrella. Why do you think Carlos Tavares got the informal, formal walk-in papers? Because of a lot of the products in the Stellantis fold, and these are some of the worst. Now, they're a fun car to drive. I personally have driven a few different Alfa Romeos, the Stelvio, the Quadrifoglio of both the Stelvio as well as the Giulia. Spectacular fun to drive, but you know, the limited dealership availability, if you live in a smaller community, you won't be able to service them. Chrysler Voyager, 300 days supply. I've showed you those all over the place. Those are pretty much the rental car specials. We see them all the time on the rental car lots because they can throw, you know, a ton of people in there. It's a practical, easy vehicle to rent because especially when people are coming to visit, it's easy to throw, you know, 4, 5, 6 people in a vehicle and go touring around. You know, these are, you go to Hawaii, you go to Mexico, you go anywhere, and touristy locations, you'll always find these types of vehicles in the fleets. And that's pretty much the only way these are selling. Nobody wants them. Again, it's part of the Stellantis fold. I mean, it's Chrysler. Chrysler basically just sells a minivan. Chrysler is pretty much all but washed up, and I would be shocked to see if Chrysler is around within a year from now. They have one product line. It's not a great product line that in terms of sales, and as a result, there's a 300-day supply, so they're moving on. They're about 10, 11 months day supply at current sales rate. The Audi A3, we don't have VAG, so Volkswagen and the Audi and Porsche sales are down too. But Audi sales, I mean, here we have a small little sedan. It's their smallest, the A3. The engines that come in those aren't that reliable. You've got to get into the RS3, which makes it fun. You get the Turbo 5, but honestly, the A3, the S3, not the most durable products. Turbo 4s, and you know, it's a product that not a lot of people are looking for. You know, if you want something smaller, luxurious, usually people are, I mean, they're just not going there. They're looking now for SUVs. That seems to be more of a hotter commodity. And so getting into a brand like Audi just feels very obsolete. Like, when's the last time you've heard of anything exciting, newsflash worthy from Audi? It's been a while. I know it's been a while for me. 468 days supply. That's absolutely ridiculous. Remember, the industry average, I said Cox Automotive was about 85 days supply. That's the average, blended average of all brands. 85 days, and here we have a product that's at 468 day supply. So now you're over a year, you're about a year, almost a year and a half. 1,755 days supply. Oh man, what a catastrophe. So do any of these actually appeal to you? Do you think you're gonna buy one of these? Does it actually make sense? Definitely, if it does, be sure to go in there, carve those dealers hard, stand your ground. Don't tell them you have a trade-in. Don't tell them you're paying cash. Even if you have both, go in there, play coy, inquire about their finance and lease rates, but don't take it. If you can shop around before you even go into the dealership, that's even better for you. Know what your best deals are on finance rates, on lease rates. Go in there. If you have a trade-in you want to trade in, don't tell them until after the hard number has been discussed. And the fifth story, why vehicle prices are about to explode this year. I want to talk about this in true depth. There's a lot of reasons. It's complicated. It's not a silver bullet reason, and it's not one single reason why this is happening. We're about to see this massive explosion in vehicle prices this year. It's sad, it's disheartening, and it's very stressful and anxiety inducing. There's always a solution, and I want to share some of those options and solutions with you so that you don't get rooked overpaying for your next new overpriced vehicle. In 2025, car prices are about to explode. Clearly, you and I, as buyers, are going to pay more for our next new vehicle. The first thing we really want to get into is, the technological advancement and the complexity of vehicles is clearly a sign vehicles are trending in a more expensive way. Now, a lot of you and I have felt, we just want an affordable, cheap, easy to drive manual gearbox. I'm good with rubber floors. I don't need sunroof, and honestly, a good old-fashioned V8 in a truck, naturally aspirated, or a V6 in a car. That's all we ever asked for. That's all we ever wanted. That's right. A lot of car enthusiasts and a lot of the diehards like you and I, that's all we're asking for. That's what a lot of buyers are asking for. But unfortunately, there's regulations, safety, there's a lot of pressures, of course, from government officials, police enforcement, and all kinds, all the way around. Industry experts want to see more safe vehicles on the road. So increasing safety means you're adding, more testing, you're adding more scrutiny to the way these vehicles crumple in a collision. They're much more complex, they're much more well engineered from a safety standpoint, and quite honestly, they're not what they're used to be. Even though it's a smaller, lighter weight car, they're meant to buckle in certain areas. They actually have areas that are meant to collapse, and that takes engineering exercises, and clearly vehicles are much more complex. Technology is part of that, added complexity as well. While a lot of us don't care about lane keep assist, a lot of us don't care about backup cameras, a lot of us don't care about pedestrian warning systems and all these, these cruise control systems that are automated, and not everybody wants the big screens, and I 100% agree. A lot of people want an affordable, reliable, simple vehicle. That was 25, 30 years ago. And ever since then, well, yes, there are some of those aspects that make life easier. I mean, crank windows are a pain when you've got to open up the door next to you. You want to open up the window next to you, or possibly even unlock that door on your passenger side. Remember the days before remote or electric locks? You had to reach over and you had to pull the plunger, and sometimes you couldn't even reach over. Or the crank windows, you had to reach over and crank it by hand. Even some of the regulators saying, look now, for example, in Canada, every single vehicle has to have a backup camera. You know what, 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. So some of this new technology, while being overly complex, and some of it we like, not all of it we like. So it's a pick and choose, but unfortunately, where there's some people that want it, other people don't. You might like this, they might like that. At the end of the day, this is a complex world that seems to be expanding in a way that some of us are welcoming it with open arms, and some of us clearly aren't. So sadly, regardless, like it or not, it feels like the consumers are asking for this, and the car manufacturers are delivering it. There are certain aspects in technology that the car manufacturers are delivering that we don't all ask for, and that brings me to my next topic, which is electric vehicles. Again, pushed on by not just manufacturers, more specifically, more by regulators, and as well, electric vehicles. Tesla, for example. A lot of the electric vehicles now are heavily pushed by corporate influences. It all started there, but now that transitioned over to environmentalists, government officials, and now everybody's on board. Now, whoever started it, it's the old chicken or the egg syndrome. Who started this whole talk about electric vehicles? Well, I mean, we know electric vehicles were manufactured, if you go 100 years ago, some of the earliest vehicles were electric. Now, they never caught on because of the strong push from the oil and gas industry really had a strong stranglehold on the manufacturing of vehicles, and that's why it pretty much snuffed out further manufacturing of electric vehicles. And lo and behold, here we are again, revisiting the idea of electric vehicles. Now, many of us do not want an electric vehicle at any cost, but many do, and it seems to be a growing industry. Now, a lot of these manufacturers aren't doing very well selling them, but other ones are. The growth isn't exactly exponential, but there is a growth, and it's eating up market share. Electric vehicles are also much more costly to build. The more of those on the road, the more costs that are transferred down. Because now that takes us to the next conversation, why I think vehicles are going to explode even further in costs in 2025. See, as these electric vehicles are being produced, they are expensive. They're much more expensive to produce than the internal combustion engine. So you say, okay, I want an electric vehicle, or I don't want an electric vehicle. For many people, like the viewers, like you guys, who want just nothing but an internal combustion vehicle, internal combustion engine, for example, a V6 or a V8 engine in your trucks, your cars, that might be just exactly what a lot of customers are still looking for. Unfortunately now, the creation of these EVs and the cost to manufacture, the cost of design, engineer, the procurement of the batteries, the motors, and the outsourcing of a lot of those specialized materials means now those costs come from somewhere. So now what a lot of these manufacturers are doing, non-Tesla, of course, Tesla's pure EV, but every other vendor, it doesn't matter whether it's Mercedes, doesn't matter whether it's Porsche, doesn't matter whether it's Hyundai, Kia, Ford, for them to create that EV, they're having to take profits from somewhere. Where are those profits coming from? Many of these manufacturers say they're losing money creating every single or selling every single one of their electric vehicles. Ford's already saying it. They're losing tens of thousands of dollars on the sale of every one of their electric vehicles. So how do you get that money back? Well, you've got to recoup it somewhere. So a lot of these manufacturers are getting it off the hides of their internal combustion counterparts. So if you want to buy an F-150, for example, a Lariat with a turbo V6, guess what? You wonder why the cost of a lot of those trucks are going up. It's because they're taking the profits from those trucks and Ford's repurposing some of that cost and that money and that budget towards the manufacturing, design, and implementation of a lot of the EVs in their market. Again, the F-150 Lightning, the Ford Mustang Mach-E. You may not want anything to do with an electric vehicle, but you're going to pay for that development of that electric vehicle. If you're buying a Ford F-150 pickup truck that's a gas jobby, chances are a big part of that percentage of that dollar you're paying is going to support the Lightning or the Mustang Mach-E or some other variation. Drivetrains. Okay, why are vehicles getting more and more expensive? Let's just face it. Back in the day, you got yourself a basic V6. You could get yourself a little sporty car, might had a 3-liter V6 or a 3.5-liter V6 engine, made it up to a basic little 5-speed, 4 or 5-speed manual gearbox. Internal technology was simple. There wasn't a lot. It might be a rear-wheel drive, a little differential, but it was a very simplistic drivetrain. Now what we're finding, replacing manual gearboxes, we're now getting things like CVTs, or research and development into continuously variable transmissions, automatic transmissions outsourced by manufacturers from Europe like ZF Automatics. They're very reliable, but they're very expensive. So they're putting much more complex drivetrains. Transmissions are more complicated. Double clutch gearbox. I mean, look at that. We're seeing DCTs everywhere. Audis, Benzes, Porsche. They're no longer just limited to the likes of Ferraris and McLarens. Now you're seeing them in the mainstream. And mainstream manufacturers are now using very complex gearboxes like double clutch transmissions that cost a lot of money to create. They're heavier, they're more expensive, they're more complicated. Unfortunately, when they break, they're going to be very expensive for the consumer too. But on the front end, you're paying for all that research, development, and increased costs for a double clutch, when you're getting also a CVT transmission. Now, even the likes of Toyota with an ECVT, they use a planetary gear system, but again, it's another further development to the transmission design. So a lot of the drivetrains are far more complicated than they used to be. Of course, now you also have engines that are much more complicated. Again, naturally aspirated V6, naturally aspirated V8s. That was the flavor, a basic little 4-cylinder in a Toyota, simple engines, reliable, and that's all people wanted. But now, of course, to meet strict emissions, they're having to create smaller engines. You might have had a V8 engine before. Now they're creating a turbo, V6, maybe even a turbo 4-cylinder because of emissions. They get better fuel economy. They perform just as well, but they're going to come at a cost. You're getting more turbocharging. You're getting more drivetrains that are much more complicated to develop. Turbos, extra components, and sure, they might be smaller, but there's all this extra plumbing and design around it, and it certainly won't stop this year. We're going to see further enhancement, more hybrids. We're going to see more EVs hit the market, and the market share of complicated drivetrains is going to increase. Say bye-bye to a basic little 4-cylinder. Say bye-bye to a basic little V6. Say bye-bye to V8s. I mean, even Ram, look, they pretty much kissed their V8 engines goodbye. And now this year, all you can get is either the V6 naturally aspirated, which will go away, or the Hurricane twin turbo inline 6-cylinder engine. But let's break this down. We've seen huge changes in the political landscape here in both Canada and United States. We're seeing a lot of changes. It's actually going on around the globe. This isn't restricted to North America. We're seeing it all over with the changes of the guard at the helm. Okay, we're seeing new presidents, prime ministers. Things are changing. There's already a lot of rumors about tariffs. Tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. Now we've seen this go on. The Americans are already talking about once they become, roll into power, there's a huge conversation around tariffs and what that looks like. There's a talk about applying tariffs to Canada, applying tariffs to Mexico, China, you name it. The Americans are also talking about how Europeans have very little representation of North American cars, and they're going to likely look at the latest news that we're hearing, huge tariffs possibly applied to European vehicles. Why? Well, they're not supporting North American products, so why should we support Mercedes, BMW, Audi, all that stuff coming from Europe? There is a good possibility we're going to see huge tariffs on European vehicles. So do those reasons make sense to you? I'd love to hear more about it from your perspective. But unfortunately, with all this technology, the increases in performance, complex drivetrains, there's no reason these prices won't continue to rise. This is just the world we're in today. You want to check out that video? That's my mega compilation of the most reliable vehicles and mega compilation of least reliable vehicles. They're long, but you've got the drink, you've got the snacks, you're good to go. Hope to see each and every one of you in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.